final story of the night, and it is our video game story. And just today, I believe, there was the announcement that the shooter Evolve, where you take one player who's the monster and four players who's a team hunting said monster, that game has been delayed outside of 2014. It should be hitting sometime in 2015. And now we're talking about this today because this seems to be a little bit of a trend. We see all these games, and you know, I'm just waiting for it to start happening with movies, but they release they release dates for these things years in advance sometimes. And it just doesn't always make sense. It's like, well, you could probably get it done if nothing at all glitches in your entire development process in that amount of time. But it just doesn't seem like they're giving themselves leeway enough.
And I'll tell you why that happens, though. Like, part of it's, you know, maybe bad planning, but a lot of it's probably just marketing and higher-ups setting a date, not necessarily knowing how long or what's reasonable to say for this, but they'll deliver the promises to keep the hype up. Yeah, and it's going to be unrealistic. So.
Yeah, and I mean, and you know what? I don't see this as a bad thing necessarily. I think this is more of a good thing because how many times have we seen games that look like they're going to be awesome? They hit right on their release date, and they come out, and they're just bugged to death. It reminded me of Fallout 3 New Vegas. When that game came out, Fallout 3 was amazing. Everybody loved it. It reinvigorated the Fallout franchise. Everybody wanted to run out and get it. And then you got your Fallout 3 New Vegas, and it didn't work. I mean, I don't know if it's still they fixed a lot of the bugs from the PlayStation 3 version that were out there. I know I played it on the 360. They patched it up pretty well after a while, but it was just impossible to play. And so what would you rather see a game come out on that date, or would you like to see it, you know, be pushed back to when it's actually ready? And I'd say push it back to when it's actually ready.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, it'd be better if sometimes you really probably do need to push things up a bit if things are getting dragging their feet a little bit too much. But I can think like Sierra. You remember Sierra, the huge in the 90s and 80s.
Point and click everything.
Yeah, and they did other stuff since then. They did like the Spyro and Crash Bandicoot games and things like that. But if you ever, I don't know if you guys are familiar with YouTuber Metal Jesus Rocks. He's a big gamer, right? Who used to work at Sierra. He's noted that one of the disappointments for him about Sierra, even though he loved Sierra, was one of their games. They released, and it didn't work upon release, and they knew it didn't work upon release, but they had to meet a deadline, and they included a patch on a floppy disk in the boxes that you would have to install beforehand so they could meet that deadline, and it still didn't work very well. And he noted that as like one of the beginnings of their downfall. And as you guys know, eventually Sierra just got absorbed into Activision, and I think actually in the last like few days there's been some news.
Yeah, some talk about them coming back, yeah.
But it's not going to be the same company, really. It's just whatever division of Activision, right, or whatever. But
yeah, and there was another game. There was like I do remember some of the delays for BioShock Infinite. That was supposed to come out 1 year, and then it got pushed back like 4 or 5 months. Well, that game came out. It was very polished. There wasn't very many bugs. It worked very well. And then I remember there was a game called Too Human, which got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And then when it came out, it was still absolutely horrendous. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't always work.
BioShock Infinite, great game, right? Everyone loves it. It didn't do well enough. The publisher, or not the publisher, but the studio went under. So maybe that hurt them in the end.
They were closing anyway. If you remember,
they're closing anyway. If you're making money, though, you're not just going to close.
You might.
Yeah, you're unlikely.
You know, less unlikely, but you might. But yeah, like here's a list of games that have already been delayed from being released in 2014 to being released in 2015. Witcher 3 was a big one. The Order 1886, Dying Light, Arkham Knight, one that just broke my heart seeing that it wasn't going to be out in time, but it was alright because I was going to get that for a next-gen system, and I don't have one of those yet. So, The Division, the really cool Tom Clancy game that was supposed to be out, I believe, like before summer this year, and it got pushed back a lot farther. You had a Mad Max game and the aforementioned Evolve. So, I mean, I really don't mind them pushing back games as long as the product that comes to market is a good product. You know, I just think that they should rein back the advertising machine and maybe not promise people these games to be released at this time when you know damn well they're not either they're not going to be ready or it's just not going to be a finished product. Yeah. And I'm tired of seeing these day one DLC stuff because you do see that with a lot of different games. It's a little bit easier than Sierra did it with the floppy disk because they can work on the patch for it. But how many times have you put in a game and it's like you can't play it yet? You have to download this huge patch for everything that didn't work that we sent out anyway. You know, so I'd rather them focus more on getting out the good product than timelines. But if you already have the timeline out there, I do want them to stick with it. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 for me because it's like you promised me. It's like telling a little kid. It's like telling a little kid, here's Christmas, and then when Christmas, right before it comes, like, no, we're pushing Christmas back another 5 days. You can't have your Christmas yet. It's like, what? The anticipation, you've killed me.
But definitely, like, sometimes you know things happen. You don't know. Bugs come up. They're found late in the game and they're critical, whatever. Or you got a little too ambitious. You don't see what's coming. Especially when you're playing things, you know, so many years ahead of time. You have no idea what's going to come up when the game's not even fully planned yet. How do you know what's going to happen? But yeah, I agree with you. It's probably better to make sure you get a finished product, a really polished product out, and you'll see it's still kind of worked pretty well for companies like Valve, who are famous for just releasing whenever. People are still waiting for Half-Life 3, for instance, forever. On the other hand, you have things going badly sometimes, like Duke Nukem Forever, which took forever to come out.
And it was horrible. So, well, it missed its window. Like, it might not have been such a horrible game 10 years ago, but it was just way out of its own time.
It really wasn't that bad of a game. It just was not worth 15 years' wait, and it wasn't as good as Duke Nukem 3D. So you'd think that with this huge anticipation and polishing, they would have something at least on par with their previous iteration, and they didn't. It fell short, and like you said, like it was way past the time that it should have come out to be good or any good, and just too much.
So bottom line is, developers keep doing their thing, making good games, pushing them out there. PR departments, slow down a little bit. Don't. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've thought of, okay, this game's coming out at this point. I remember very specifically, it was Rainbow Six Vegas 2. And I knew exactly when that game was coming out. I was going to go right to the Best Buy where I knew where it was going to be. I went there the day of its release, looking for it. Literally, I was pointing to posters for the employees. Like, look, no, it comes out today. You see the poster? It's right there. It is supposed to be out. Let me get it. And it didn't come out it got delayed by like a month, and I didn't realize that. And you know what? I didn't get the game ever because I just forgot about it after that point. I was just like, oh, it just totally. And I love those games. So
yeah, there is one game too that I can see why they might want to have pushed it a little harder to get it up earlier, and that's that we're still waiting for right now, which is the Super Smash Brothers for the Wii U, because that's a game should have been out at latest last Christmas. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if that had happened, or really it needed to be out before the PS4 and the Xbox One dropped. And if that had happened, we would be talking about a very different video game market. Like, Nintendo is starting to get back in with the Wii U now that Mario Kart 8's out. Now that they're promising Smash Brothers by the end of this year, you know, they didn't deliver last year or the last several months. Now that they have a bunch of other products, but honestly, this is a little late, guys. Everyone started getting the PS4. You should have had that out a year ago. Smash Bros. Should have been out a year ago, because that's what everyone was waiting for. Mario Kart would have been nice to be out earlier. Some of the other ones should have been out earlier than they are. I guess hopefully it's going to be a really good game. I think that they still have a chance, but that's one that I would have seen a smart move to put as much resources as possible to getting that out last year.
Well, yeah, I mean, get it out there with the launch of the system, because you saw the boost when Mario Kart 8 came out, what we had. If they had one of those titles as a launch title, I mean, think about where the Wii U would be right now. It'd probably be a lot bigger. And you know what? With a fighting game like that, you can release more characters later on through DLC if you're still working on some of those. You can make it free, though. Make it free. and levels and stuff later. You know, you don't have to necessarily unveil the whole thing right away.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't know what happened with that. Whatever.
But you know, let us know. Let us know what you guys think. Is the delays good for games? Is it bad for games? Is it the developers, or is it the PR company that should be, we should be standing outside with torches and pitchforks demanding our game now? So tell us what side of the fence you fall on this. Let us know in comments down below, of course, at Words for My Face on Twitter, wordsformyface@gmail.com, and, of course, Google Plus and Facebook.